Podcast. Today I'm really excited to have Jamie Acton on. Thanks for coming. Jamie, former Wigan and Leeds player, good friend of mine who's trained me many moons ago in total fitness. Since retiring, Jamie's had some mental health struggles that he's been quite open about and set his own mental health app and fitness app called Banish Fitness, which is really doing well and making a big change in the world. So thanks for coming on, mate. Just want to start off talking to us about when you first started experiencing any mental health challenges, what age you was and what was it you was experiencing?
So I from a very young age got diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
So at school, I think I was about really young. So reception, I was living in London. I was on Ritalin from being quite young,
Right.
and then I transitioned from London, living in London, into like Buckinghamshire, sort of the outskirts of London, down south. I went to a primary school there, and stayed on Ritalin, which is basically a medication for ADHD, which sort of calms you down a lot. But it sedates you in a lot of ways, so it really does alter your personality. And then, sort of long story short, my mum and dad separated when I was about 9 years old, so it was like year 4, year 5, and it really impacted me. And I think I wasn't able to sort of realise it at the time, but I had that sort of big fear of abandonment, like he's left because of me, rather than acknowledging it's between my mum and dad separating. So it felt like, well, I've obviously done something wrong, and I've reflected upon that now, and it's think differently. But as a kid, you don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with it. So anyway, I then stopped taking. I went to secondary school, but this sort of anger started to develop within me. I started becoming particularly naughty. I was already naughty because of ADHD, but it sort of multiplied by about 100. Went to secondary school, and I sort of stood on my heels a little bit. My mum sort of turned to alcohol quite a lot. I wouldn't go as far as maybe say she was an alcoholic, but I don't know. She
had a negative relationship with it.
With it, to sort of probably as a coping mechanism. Sort of, she was a massive workaholic. Really threw herself into her work. Did everything she could for me and my sister, but because I was already a little bit hard work, she, I think, sort of tried to show me too much love. I couldn't do anything wrong, so I had no boundaries in my life. If that makes sense, if I wanted to go to a party or I didn't do my homework, it was all right.
It was okay.
Because my mum didn't want to have to sanction me, probably because she felt guilty because I was going through this time. So it came from a good place, but actually, as a young man, probably you're the same, I needed very strict boundaries, guidelines, and having someone to kind of go, listen, lad, crack on, 100%. And I had no strong role models. So I went to secondary school, put my foot down, said, right, I'm not taking this Ritalin anymore. Came off all the drugs, went into school, and it was just like chaos, absolute chaos. I got suspended, I think, twice in year 7.
What for, mate?
Fighting. So just channeling my anger for other people and just being a nuisance, trying to gain attention any way I can. So I've got this sort of ADHD where I'm constantly can't concentrate on anything, seeking attention. But at the same time, I've got these deep demons, this fear of abandonment, where I'm just throwing out in anger. And I think I couldn't recognise it back then, but I started to not really particularly like myself, and I became a bit of a bully, really. And I became not really liking myself, and because of that, all this kind of abundance of mess was formulated together to create this horrible sort of young man that had no boundaries, had no discipline, and didn't really like himself. So when I was going home at night, I was, punching the garage wall, just self-loathing, self-harming, and I couldn't understand where the anger was coming from. And it's only now, looking back, it's almost like it must be because I hated myself so much because of the actions, but I couldn't have the emotional intelligence to actually reflect on what was going on. So it was abundance of that, and sort of that stemmed into sort of anxiety, and then eventually, really, I used found that rugby and sport was a solution to dealing with making myself calm, and I was able to sort of really have that as an outlet. And when I played sport, whether it be athletics, a bit of boxing, rugby, obviously particularly, that when I threw my all into that, I became relaxed and calm. And if I knew that okay, well, I get to play rugby at the end of the day for school. I'll be good that day.
Yeah.
And I had that horizon.
That letter, that thing to look forward to, you could hold on to.
Yeah, so sport became this like absolute flag in the sand and this vehicle rock that I started to like pin my life upon for so many other reasons, both as an outlet, but also it's like, well, if you don't behave and you're not good, you don't conform to these groups, you're not going to be allowed to play for the team, get along with players, get along at school. So that really became the saving grace, and that was then the outlet to a professional sort of career, really.
Yeah, so you had to be disciplined and improve at school, otherwise you wouldn't have played in the sports team, and that helped, that did it too.
That's absolutely right. So the discipline sort of came from not a specific person, but the fact that, well, if you break the rules and you don't conform, you're not going to be allowed to play anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had, and that was really the kind of the theoretical, the hypothetical, boundary that was keeping me in check.
Yeah. Just because you look forward to sport that much, you knew it was your saviour, and you couldn't risk not having that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
So what about? Did you lose contact with your dad, mate? When you said that?
So yeah, I think he was having a difficult time, like my dad. You know, I think he and my mum sort of fell out of love, and my dad sort of wasn't really happy anymore in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then he left, but I think he's a little probably a bit different to me. Is he probably isn't or wasn't back then anyway as open about his feelings.
Yeah.
So maybe you know, he admitted me before, maybe he would have sat me down differently and tried to articulate what he was going through differently.
Yeah.
But obviously my mum and dad at that point were at each other.
Yeah.
And I think obviously a lot of people could probably resonate with this. Many people have got parents that have broken up and separated for a variety of reasons. But I think it's very hard maybe as a parent when you're going through a relationship breakdown to start speaking to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old about the emotional framework in which is actually going on there.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, he sort of had to have his own time. I think that was important for him to get away and sort of clear his head out. Yeah. But obviously the negative aspect of that meant that it affected me in this deep root, which I've still got now. Yeah. Even though we've talked, and my dad's one of my best mates. You know, I love him to death, but I can't. But I do have a real fear of abandonment in my life still now. You know, people that I love or my close friends having that severe anxiety of, do you still like me? Am I all right? Yeah. Do you still love me? Are you sure? You know what I mean?
Do you feel better though now you know where it's come from and you don't think like it's
I think
you know why?
I think there's two sides to it. It's like one side of it is like, okay, I get it, I understand it. Yeah. But the other side is like, it's frustrating because you know it's therefore illogical. You know that he didn't leave because he doesn't want to be with you.
Yeah, of course.
You know it's because these other reasons. That aren't anything to do with that. But still, you carry around this sort of like anxiety and weight that you can't really get rid of. It's really, it's a double-edged sword, really. Yeah,
of course it is. Yeah. And then, so sport came along, was your saviour. You're really good at it, put all your energy, all your anger into it. Obviously, had massive success.
Sorry, I've still got my haircut.
So, mental health sort of disappeared through your career, did it, or was it always still there, or did you manage it okay while you was playing?
Yeah, great question. So, rugby started off and sport specifically became the saving grace. Rugby obviously became then the sort of the one I was good at. So that's the one I pursued. I carried on playing for a variety of clubs, played rugby union, went over to the league because I got an injury, so obviously because they run opposite ends of the year. I just to get fit, I played rugby league for a club called Hemel down south. And that was sort of the first time I'd played with men. So I'd gone from playing with boys to sort of first grade men, even though it was that like conference league or whatever it was. But why that was quite profound for me was it was the first time I was in a culture where there was these men that could basically beat me up. Right. And I'd always been sort of what the cock of the school or whatever you say, the dominant figurehead in my social group. And suddenly I was thrown into a culture as like, I'm not that guy anymore. And that was quite weird. Right, you know what I mean? And I had straight away a few guys that were a lot bigger and tougher and older than me. And it was a bit of a cultural shift and dynamic. And that threw me a little bit. And obviously my response to that was the typical young idiot, well, I want to be as tough, I want to be as strong. And I wanted to match that. And I started to create from that very point, a little bit of a persona of, okay, well, I'll try and match you. I'll try and be this sort of tough guy bravado. And that started probably then when I was about 16. And at the time I was in a relationship with my ex-partner, and we had a little girl, but when I was about 17, and around that sort of time Wigan offered to sign me and to move up north. So I moved up with a young baby at the time, Emily, and I moved up still with this sort of brief persona that I'd begin to create, this bravado. And I went to Wigan, and I brought it with me. And straight away I thought, right, I have to try and now be the dominant figure. And I tried to live it. And it just was like a snowball that got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I found literally over the space of about 3 years, this snowball becoming so big that I couldn't really identify between being Jamie and this other person anymore.
The animal he was with his training.
I'd lost who I was. And I wasn't even aware of it. And all this sort of, it's almost like, I know it's a bit of a cringe or cliche, but there's that Venom film out recently with Tom Hardy, and you've got that that demon that like takes over whatever. And it's almost like I'd allowed sort of that Venom to come out and go, right, you live your life, lad. And sort of the Tom Hardy figure, I don't know what it's meant to be called. He went into the shadows. So the things that I would now class myself as really important parts about my personality, sort of being sort of kind, really looking out for people, being very loving, being really very caring, very sort of I'm a very emotional person really. I like deep conversation, all these things that just disappeared. They're just gone, and it become this very black and white, aggressive, figurehead that was living my life, and it broke down my relationship. I didn't really have a connection with my children because I had another son a few years after, Harry. Never bonded with him as a kid. I was so cold as this person, and it really then started to damage my rugby career, because sort of you fast forward another few years again, I think I've got like the record, I'm not to show off about, but the most banned Super League player in a season. In rugby, because I think obviously you've said you've similar experiences. So I played with this emotion and anger, which worked well some of the time, but you're a knife edge. The minute you go over it, you see it a bit well. So and you never know what when Venom is playing the game for you. You don't know what it's going to do. You're not in control. You just, the minute someone gives you a funny look or a bad tackle or someone hits you late off the ball, suddenly this big persona, his personality has got to be. And also then on an emotional level, you're not creating genuine relationships because you're having this fake persona. When day to day, obviously in a full-time environment, you're not a very nice person, and you're constantly being a bit of a pretender and a bit false. You're lying, you're creating stories, you're
acting up to this.
You're acting up to be this person, and people think you're an idiot. People don't like you. I then got heavily into sort of cocaine for years, like drugs, basically because every week I wanted to escape that pain. And I found out, hang on, when I'm taking these drugs, I'm out of my mind. It's almost like I go back into myself for a bit, and I can be happy. But obviously, as you know, what comes up must come down. And the next day, you're depressed, you're anxious. Venom comes out to fruition, and then you chase the next time you're going to have drugs to be able to get away from it again. And this horrific spiral just cascades and cascades and cascades to the point where you're just not in control anymore. But really, what was fascinating was it sort of the end of my career. I broke my neck. Just one of those like freak accidents, really, and. I'd not stopped to think about any of this for a second. I'd gone through a breakup, not bonding with my children, been banned all these many games. So there's been so many big things that had gone, should have been massive alarm bells to go, what are you doing, pal? What's going on? And it ultimately took a career-ending injury for me to actually have to face up to reality of kind of going, right, now what?
Yeah.
Now what? And it was going through the loss of identity of not being a rugby player anymore. It was basically someone going, well, you're not allowed to be that bravado anymore. You can't do it.
Yeah, and you're not.
And because basically that, again, metaphorically, had taken away the career or that person from me. It's like someone had like got the venom and gone, right, you're not allowed to, can't even have it anymore. That's it, you're done. And facing up to that was obviously the hardest I've ever gone through in my life. Didn't want to be around, felt like nothing. But as that small guy that was left has now been able to grow and blossom a little bit and become more accountable and stronger, it's like, whoa, thank God you're back. The real James is
Jamie, but
totally.
So do you think
that's been the story, really?
The story releasing. So what happened in your childhood, the way you dealt with it was anger, and then do you think playing rugby sort of fueled that more and sort of increased it? Is it your coping mechanism added tenfold onto it the way that you had to be, and then only after you retired could you actually deal with it and realise you couldn't deal with it that way anymore?
I think it's the fact that rugby and contact sport facilitated a platform to outlet that anger. But it isn't a solution. Do you know what I mean? So I think that the difficulty is with sport, and this is one of the reasons I've developed my app, Banish, is because I think fitness and sport, as music can be, as lots of different vices can be a fantastic vehicle to outlet demons, whatever context that might be for you personally. But once you let them out, it's almost like then the hard work starts. So once you've got out, then your mind's a little bit calmer and relaxed.
Of course,
You've then got to start reflecting and go, okay, well, why was I angry? What triggered me? What could I do better about that? I need to now talk about that with people. What other methods can I be doing next time I feel like that? I'm not my emotion, I'm not angry. So all that hard work needs to be done. But you can't, in my opinion anyway, can't do that when you're in the space of reactive flight or fight, emotion. So to answer your question, really, rugby's been a fantastic tool to outlet my anger for a long time. But it also was a bit of a double-edged sword in regards to it didn't ever let me solve the problem. It never meant that I had to deal with it, because it was a constant platform for me to be able to go, keep going, mate. Keep going, Brendan. Keep going. Fuel, keep going. It kept fueling, or providing a platform for that venom character to be on a pedestal and live his life.
And go bigger. So like sport is a big saviour, but with contact sport, and I know it myself until I see it. I know the way I was until I see it in people who play rugby. People who are cage fighters, boxers, where it is tough to go up and face people on a field, people in a ring, but it's a lot tougher to deal with the demons outside. And like you say, you can act hard on a Saturday night when you're fighting a play where you've got that person charging at you and use aggression, but dealing with your demons when you can't use that aggression. A lot of people never have the balls to face it, which you have.
And I think developing resilience in that regard, people forget, can have a profound impact on your performance physically. Like, Tyson Fury is a fantastic example of that. If you are able as a young man to become accountable for your emotional state, to be able to openly admit to people, I'm really struggling, I'm having a hard time, this has really upset me, you've really upset me, this is how I feel about this. If you can start to develop an attitude where you're actually fighting those battles internally and talking about it, you're then going into a physical arena, be it a cage fight, a rugby match, in the gym, with a calmer mind. You're more in control of what you're doing. You're the one acting, you're making decisions. You're not reacting to this emotional state, that's this fire that's keeping you going. So I think it's fantastic that we've got that fuel. I think you're born with it. It can be an absolute superpower, but you've got to be able to harness it. And I believe that it's not like one or the other. I think exercise and then dealing with your demons, as I always call them, is it's like you've got to do both at the same time. The exercise can be a fantastic tool as an outlet, but you then got to carry on the fight. You've got to keep going with it. You know what I mean?
So you'd say for people watching, a lot of people struggle to open up, especially men, because they're scared of being looked upon as soft. But you know, someone as tough as hard as you, and I know Jamie well, there's not many. You'd say that opening up and being honest like you are doing now, it's tougher than anything you can ever do on the field. Anything you ever do in a ring, it takes a lot more balls, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that extends into so sport can trigger some of our anxieties. So you know, you for example, when you play in any sort of competitive sport, if you're competitive, the fear of losing can challenge your ego.
Yeah, yeah.
And if your ego is challenged, then that can make you really worked up and angry. It can make you doubt yourself. It can make you feel, you know, go into yourself. Why am I not good enough? All these things. I should be something more. As if like you should be something better.
Yeah.
So sport can also actually challenge the other way and actually put a magnifying glass on maybe demons that you're not dealing with. Why am I so upset that I can't pick that weight up in the gym? Why am I so upset about comparing myself to that person in the gym or on social media? And all these other things actually are great tools to kind of go, that's interesting. Why am I reacting like that? Why is that making me feel jealous? What's going on here? And going down that rabbit hole and asking yourself questions, that's a really hard fight. I think particularly because it's tedious. It's so, it takes so much energy. It's completely draining. Like you can go for a workout, you know, for 10 minutes and feel a bit better about yourself. But it's sitting down and talking to someone about how upset you are about something. When there's not really a solution to the problem that you can think of, and just going round the houses talking, it can be an incredibly draining process. And just that in itself is just like, that's hard. That's really hard. So there's no doubt about it. Like talking, opening up with people is hard for so many different reasons. But it's so crucial.
It takes a lot more of a man to do it and face up to your own demons and talk about them, doesn't it, than it ever will to face up to a fight or a scrap on a rugby pitch, doesn't it? Which, you know, we act as being tough when really this is the toughest thing to do, isn't it? Be honest and open with yourself and the people around you.
I agree, but I think probably using another sporting analogy, it's not going to happen overnight. If you are dealing with problems, don't feel like it's going to be something that you go, right, one day dot, now I've heard a podcast of me and Joe talking about opening up. I'm going to turn around and open up to everyone in the world, because it's like, no, that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be, you might know someone that's close to you. You might have someone that you might be able to confide in. It might be a family member, it might be a friend, it might be someone that you just go to a club with, or you don't really know. Sometimes they're the best people because they're
not emotionally involved.
That's right, and they can give you a better voice. But also there's things like Samaritans. There's amazing like Calm. There's some amazing support lines. Just being able to talk, which and offer a sort of an ear, which if you've never done it before can seem like a bit of a futile, ridiculous thing to do, but it's so empowering actually being able to talk about problems. But it's a really, really important thing to do, but it's not going to be easy. So you've got to start small, like that analogy of running, you know, going on a marathon. You don't think, right, I'm going to run 26 miles. You go, right, I'm going to get to the next lamppost. Right, brilliant. I'm going to break it down into small goals. I'll tell one person one little thing, see how I feel, might open up a little bit more and more and more, and gradually you build momentum.
So we get better. So after you finished playing, you know, you're really struggling. How did that marathon of getting better start for you? How did you go and get help? Or was it just talking to people close to you?
So this is my opinion. I don't know how it stands. I think we all go through mental health problems in our life. When we talk about mental health problems, it's mental health has now got this like a bad name. The word mental health, as if it's something negative. Like we all have mental health. We all have physical health. Mental health is neither positive or negative. It just is the state of your health, right? But we now talk about it currently in a bit of a demonised fashion. The minute you hear the phrase mental health, it's like, oh, is there a problem? So no. So I'd say I don't like that. So I think we should talk about mental health and physical health in the context of just non-binary. It just is. So we all go through a roller coaster of mental health, positive and negative throughout our life. Now that's negating forms of clinically diagnosed psychosis. So if you're, you know, severe depression, you know, different forms of psychosis. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about forms of ups and downs that we all go through, trauma, depression, lows, highs in our lives. How do we deal with that? Well, the fundamental way I believe that we deal with that is through our support network. So the saving grace between people who get through mental health problems and don't is whether their support network is strong enough. Right. So if you've got the right people around you, you'll be all right. If you haven't, you're going to struggle. Then that's quite that, and that I've seen that time and time again in my experiences and the more research I've done building this app. So there's two things that come from that. One, it's really important that you're surrounding yourself with good people and you're being really specific about who it is that you're spending time with. Yeah. Because those people are you're going to be a direct influence of those people that you spend most time with. But also when you do inevitably, because we all go through those ups and downs, have a bit of a bad patch, you're relying on that little network to look after you. So that network has to be strong. So don't hang around with people that that aren't going to be there for you when you need them. That might mean you've got to bin a lot of people in your life. I know I did. And your support network gets a lot smaller, but a lot tighter, a lot stronger. Second point is that sometimes you're in a situation where you haven't got those good people around you. So you've actually got to go and look for them. If you're listening to this now and you sort of think, I've got no one around me. I've got no one around that's going to be good. There are people. There are so many people. I'm sure, like me and you, for example, if someone messaged me out the blue saying I'm having a really tough time.
Feel free to do that.
Anyway. 100%. On Facebook, Instagram, anything. If someone out the blue didn't even know, I'm having a really tough time, I'd be there in a heartbeat. And that quote, Tony said it, broken people fix broken people. And that's how it works, right? So be on the lookout, go and find these people. There's so many people out there willing to help you, and often your greatest supporter is someone you don't know. So if you listen to this and you're anticipating going through a tough time, reach out to people. And it might be that a lot of people kind of go, now see in a bit, but that's great, because every person that says to you, now I'm not interested or whatever, you're filtering out the people you don't need in your life, and you're bringing the better ones around you. And then, like, to finalise, that support network is the thing that saved me. So when I was going through my hardest time, I didn't want to be around. I tried pushing everyone away. I drove to the Lake District, tried topping myself in my car, and it was a really, people always talk about suicide and these rates of depression as a really selfish thing. And I don't obviously experience it yourself, but like, it's almost like the complete opposite. You think that the world is better off without you.
You feel like you're a burden on the people.
You feel like you're a complete burden. Right. So it's like you feel like the most selfless thing you can be doing is removing yourself.
That's the state you was in on that day.
100%. Like, I thought, the fact that I'm in my life at the moment, and I'm someone's dad, I'm someone's partner, this is awful for him. This is what a burden. How imagine having to call me your dad, like. And so and that's the state you're in. So when you hear people go, oh, he's just selfish, he's doing that, it's completely alien to me, because it's like you're completely missing what's going on in that person's head at that time. All they're thinking about is how terrible they are and how much better off the world would be without them. So you try pushing the world away, and that support network that I had, really sort of 2 or 3 close friends, my wife and my mum, my dad, really relentlessly didn't let me go down that spiral. So I was doing everything I could. I was pushing them away. I was taking as much drugs as I could. I was calling them rotten. I was telling them how much I hated them all, to try and create the distance. And they kept going. They kept going. And one of the most difficult things I think about depression is being someone. Because this is what people say often. You feel like, if I'm here for you, if you need anything, and you've got to be really specific when you say that. Like, are you here for that person? Because that is an incredibly strong statement to say to someone. So, like, if someone messaged me now after this podcast, or yourself, I might turn around and go, right, this is what I think we should do.
Yeah.
I can come and meet you for a coffee, we can come and do this. I can't be there for you 24/7, but these are the helplines.
Yeah.
This is what directions I'm going to point you in. Because if I was taking my son to a rugby match, and you rang me saying, can I have a coffee, because I'm feeling a bit down, I'm not going to take my son to rugby. So I'm not here for you 24/7. Now, with my wife, we wouldn't go rugby. With my dad or whatever, we wouldn't go to my daughter's dance concert. I wouldn't go to, I could be on the way to a rugby match or a cage fight or whatever and be like, no, I can't go. Because I've committed to my support to maybe 4 people in my life. No, I'm there for you. Like, whatever happens,
of course,
I'm that support network. Because that's what they did for me. So, really long-winded way around, but honestly, I can't stress those points enough. Your support network is a thing that gets you through mental health problems. So, either make sure you've got a strong support network. If you haven't, go out and find it. Go out and reach your hand out, pat out the grapevine. And if you are someone's support network or you're in that vicinity, make sure you exactly know what it is you're going to be there for them for, what your boundaries are, and to be able to articulate that to them. And if you are there genuinely for someone, get ready for a difficult burden. Because if they are dealing with a hard time, you could be giving up several months of your life, if not longer, dealing with someone that is going through a really, really difficult time, which is very.
So, was it literally say not just that food, but they literally just keep fighting, and you slowly, step by step, started coming round? Or, like I said, I went for therapy myself. Did you go for anything like that? Or I've been into reading books and sort of working on myself like that. Was it just slowly they brought you round, you started realising your own worth, and then you found this release in Banish where you're going to help other people, and that's been another part of your saving grace with the... How did it work that way?
I think there was a bit of a blend. I started a little bit like yourself. A few friends got me into like Stoicism.
Right,
like a few books on Stoicism. That's what me started making me really reflect a little bit. Controllables. All that sort of thing. Don't know how much you looked at.
Very good.
And I really bought into it. It's hard, isn't it, when you're in a bad place? But that got around it. I had a couple of friends that literally, a friend of mine, Christian, who basically said, I want to start jiu-jitsu. Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I tried training in the gym, I tried having a physical outlet, but because I had no goal anymore, it was like, what's the point? I don't want to bench press for the sake of bench pressing. I've got no desire to go on stage or compete in a strongman competition. So I'd always ever trained for rugby. So suddenly that horizon wasn't there anymore. It was like, what's the point? And that became really demotivating. So it was like, listen, I'm going to go and do some jiu-jitsu. He dragged me down to a jiu-jitsu session. Within a few sessions, I fell in love with it. I think it was about being in around lads, having a little bit of banter, and take my mind out of things, being in a group. And I think that is one of the really important things about training. Like, exercise can be a really profound experience, but spending time with people, like, we're living in a world now which isn't real on social media, where we're not having conversations, we're not talking. And I think it was the first time I was back, not in a rugby culture, but in a culture of sort of men, having a bit of a laugh, taking the piss out of me, and I was giving it back. And suddenly it was less about the jiu-jitsu and the training, and it was more just about the banter. And it was like, whoa, I feel a bit better now. And that sort of progressed. I was training a lad at the time, Callum, whose dad's Darren Morris, probably
it's a bit of an animal down.
Well, I think he's probably the single greatest man I've ever met in my life. He's the most. He's been an absolute transformative figure in my life, as a friend, as a coach, as a role model, as an inspiration, and as a lot like yourself. I didn't know you, but if you mention someone. To someone, do you know Darren? They will give you the same response.
You're not the first person who said that to me about him. I've met him myself a few times, and
he's got an aura, and I think him. And then so anyway, I was training his son at the time, and I went, and his son Callum said, "Why don't you get down and train at ASW?" And I met a few of the guys there, and basically within a week, I was just like, I'd spent my life playing rugby with people where I wasn't ever really accepted, and I turned this corner a little bit of sort of finding myself. and the chant James, I had still others, I was still a bit weird and a bit mad.
Yeah.
But those nuances and differences and weirdnesses were completely accepted straight away.
Right, yeah.
And I was straight away in a culture of a bunch of like lads that are now some, you know, best mates that was just like, yeah, we're training, we're punching each other in the face, and we're wrestling, and we're learning all this stuff, and we're exercising. But it became actually this really small part. And really it was this, right, 4 days a week, I get to go and spend time with my mates and actually, you know, grow as a person, develop my self-confidence, and you know, even now, even so I'll do that 4 or 5 times a week, but even now I go to my mate Charlie Bowling's gym,
right,
Farmer Strong, in West Orton, with my S&C coach called Michael Wheatman, and basically we go on a Wednesday morning, supposed to be sort of training, it is training, throwing all weights around, but basically we mix things up for about an hour, chucking stuff around outside in the stand, put on a barbecue, and end up having 40 minutes talking crap. And it's like, my whole sense of now approach to training and fighting is like, someone asked me in layman's terms initially, headline terms, what do you do? Like, well, I do MMA 4 or 5 times a week, and I throw some weights around at a farm and S&C coach. But really what I do is go and spend time with my mates, talking, socialising, and that is the thing that's keeping me going. Exercise is the sort of the platform to go and do it, but really it's the conversations, it's the people that are being so transformative and making yourself feel better. So I would always urge that, like I can't stress that enough. In my experience, exercise can be so powerful, but it's limited. Like it is so limited. Like there's only so far. It only exists to me to an extent where it can be an outlet. But you've got to find other things. You've got to find other ways to grow. Whether that be hanging around with people that inspire you, like Darren, that you look up to, that you want to try and learn and grow in your mental state and control yourself better, be more accountable for yourself. Or it could be something like, you know, learning another new skill, could be music, could be reading, trying to embrace knowledge, learn new stuff. All of that stuff's going to make you develop far beyond just exercise. It's very important that you're doing everything at once, in my opinion.
So you stepped into a cage, didn't you, recently? You went into the fight. So how was Jamie Acton stepping into a cage mentally compared to being on the rugby pitch and being that animal? Did you feel different?
I went. Yeah, it was weird. I had a little bit of anxiety. I love competing. I absolutely love competing. I always have. It's my favourite part of rugby. I like training, but there's no better feeling of before kick-off, probably a new thing, standing on the post waiting for the kick ball, throwing that first ball in, having the fans around you, like that's what for me what rugby was, which you miss. So I had an anxiety, more of letting the team down. Like ASW's got quite a prestigious name.
It does really,
and I've been training with the likes of Lee Chadwick and Acton and Darren and things like that, and I didn't want to let them down. So my anxieties was I didn't want to look like a rugby player that had gone in and lost his head and just started having a pub brawl in a cage.
Of course,
So it was all I wanted to do. Sort of, that was my way. The anxiety and the burden of actually getting in a cage and having a fight. Luckily for me, isn't something that really sort of. I wouldn't say I'm not scared of. I think that anyone's a liar if they say they're not scared of getting in a cage and having a fight. But there's a real excitement and enjoyment about the competition element of that. And actually before the fight, I nearly fell asleep, and it was just like thinking we're just thinking, thank God I'm back. And I stepped to the cage and I thought, how weird would this feel? And the minute I got in, it literally was this calming sensation of feeling I'm back. I'm back on the pitch. The same feeling like, you know, under the post where you kick off of that. Finally, I get another opportunity to do it. And that was really like, I can see goosebumps now thinking about it. Like wicked. And it wasn't the element of having a fight. It wasn't the element. It was just the element of being able to compete and being in front of an audience and having that having to deal with adversity and that stress on the stage was quite exciting and profound. But yeah, I think there was definitely an anxiety attached to sort of letting the team down.
Yeah. So would you think Jamie Acton in the middle of the rugby career stepping in the octagon
would have been awful.
Yeah.
It would have been there'd have been no thought process. Yeah. It would have just been rah. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? One of the most fantastic things I've learned about jiu-jitsu, like again, Tom Blackledge is another fantastic coach in the area. I train at once a week, and him and Darren are both on the mindset, dealing with this calmness whilst you're training. Yeah. And I think jiu-jitsu or grappling or fighting, there's nothing that sort of induces that anxiety more. Yeah. When you've got someone crushing you, overwhelming you, bullying you, humbling you, just being in the moment, trying to survive, especially when you're initially learning, is such a weird experience. Yeah. But the more you fight and try and freak out and panic, the worse it gets. Yeah. Whereas in rugby, I don't know about you, but I always utilise that a little bit. Yeah, there was an element of that. I remember the last game I played, I think for Lee, I was slapping my head in front of the mirror before I went out, hitting my arms, you know, sniffing, smelling salts, you know, tape on every joint in my body, going, right, I'm ready, as if that's going to make any difference on how hard you tackle. Do you know what I mean? Like absolute joke when you think about it. But that's what I did. Yeah. Whereas if you take that mentality into jiu-jitsu or grappling or fighting, it's going to be short-lived, because you're going to burn out and someone's just going to take advantage of all that chaos, and actually having to completely get rid of all that way of thinking and to come back and be present, to be thoughtful, to relax, to be calm, and be methodical in regards to how you deal with that adversity and that anxiety, is an experience that I've learned specifically through fighting.
Awesome. So what would you say to 14, 15-year-old Jamie Acton now looking back?
That's a question. I would love to just be a role model for him. Yeah. I think young men are looking out. The best way to deal with younger men is to inspire them. Yeah. And I think the most 13, 14-year-old lads have role models. Yeah. And whatever their role models do, they'll do. Yeah. That's what you do. And you know, I didn't have any positive role models in my life at that age. Yeah. And I don't know what I would say to that young Jamie. I don't think that Jamie would have listened to anything I did say. No, yeah. But if I turned up as an ex-Super League player, cage fighter, that could take the piss out of Jamie physically, I know that young Jamie would be going, I'll listen to whatever you say, pal, because he's so full of ego and ready to listen to that sort of figurehead. Yeah. And I would tell him all this, what I'm saying now. I would give him all this advice and talk about how I'm talking, and I inspire him hopefully to kind of go, right, well if he can do it, I can do it. So and I think that's why it's so important. I would urge any rugby players, athletes, men, business owners, you know, any blokes really that have anything about them, to really be aware of how much influence they can have on young people. Yeah. And that could be in a really small capacity with one or two young men in your life, or it could be going into schools, doing things like you're doing, like podcasts, building platforms to try and get this out there. Because I think the best way, as I keep saying, to change 13, 14-year-old young boys' lives is to inspire them, influence them, and provide them with the right role models. Yeah. Because if they've got that, they'll just naturally try and copy or behave or do what they're doing. Yeah. And in the same way, that's why I can't stand it when athletes and things like that are doing the wrong things. Yeah. Like, you know, when they're taking drugs and not being accountable for it, or you know, they're throwing cash around like it's nothing, and you know, mistreating women, talking about women in wrong ways, just being misogynistic generally, just being arseholes. And being arseholes because they can get away with it in the social media. and they can get away with it on the platform and the culture they live in because they're surrounded by predominantly a lot of kiss artists and yes men. But they don't realise that how many hundreds, sometimes thousands of young men are looking at that going, well, that must be acceptable. Yeah. That must be all right. And it's not. No. It's not. That's a hard thing to learn. But you know, you can't change the world on your own. But all you can do is try and send your own message out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and the more of us who do what we're doing here, hopefully, you know.
Yeah, helps more. I know it's cliche, but. One or two people listen to it and go, all right, I might behave a little bit differently, or either motivate them to talk about themselves and do what we're doing now. Yeah. Brilliant.
Because that, I think through all the stories I've heard, that is usually where most young men struggle most in life, if they haven't got a dominant role model who gives them a kick up the arse when they step out of line. It seems to be a trend that, so it is so important, is it? And,
totally.
You know, we can't control how we have it to us. I'm very lucky I had a real good role model of a dad, but how important it is for our next generation to make sure we remember the lessons we've learned from ours, and how excited you know, you've got a son, haven't you? The trying to see what the lad can achieve with all the experience and stuff you've got in your life.
To be able to actually start talking about all what we're talking about now to him. You know, he's only 8 years old, and already I will say that, you know, Dad's feeling like this today. I'm feeling a bit upset. You know, what did we have the other day? The brightness on the TV wasn't right, and I had an anxiety attack. Ridiculous. And I'm talking to him. I'm telling him this is what I'm now dealing with in my head. It's funny, isn't it? It is funny, but it's also what I'm dealing with, and that this is normal. And I think if you can start to normalise anxiety and these different behaviours, not become a victim to it, but actually sort of take ownership of it, and then talk about potential solutions. So next time when Harry's at school, he had a bit of a meltdown the other day. He came home from school and said, he was upset, and he said, "Oh, Dad, can I speak to you?" I was like, "Yeah," and he said there was a little group of them doing a science project, and 2 or 3 of them didn't ask him to be part of the group, and that really affected him. He felt like, "Am I not? How come they don't like me? How come all these things?" And it was great because I thought, fantastic, what a great opportunity. Because he's actually come to me and able to talk to that 8 years old. So it's a great opportunity for me to start talking about, you know, you're not always going to be liked by everyone. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're not liked by everyone. It's all about what you think about what yourself. Do you need to choose whose opinion you care about? Do you care about my opinion more, or do you care about Joe Bloggs in your class more? And if I love you and I think you're doing all right, does that mean more to you than this? So getting all these conversations and these building blocks out to an 8-year-old, ideally, if we can start to do that at school, it's really important. And they don't do that enough. Like we don't want to have too much of a tangent because I'm going off more, but with bullying at school, for example. A lot of lads, I always got taught, if you did, don't bully. It's like, okay, fine. But what happens when you do get bullied? How do you deal with it? Do you because I went on the offensive. Let's have a scrap, or I'll try and bully back or whatever. But then that same bloke went home and started crying, cutting himself because he couldn't deal with the kind of guy he was. So
what would you say to somebody who did get bullied?
Well, I think you've got to learn that. There's a thing recently that's going viral at the moment where there's a girl called Tilly Ramsey of Strictly Come Dancing, and there was a radio presenter. I don't know his name, but he called her a chubby little thing. And there's been a big kick-off. A lot of James Smith, a lot of influencers talked about how much of a sort of bastard he is, which is right. He's an arsehole for saying that. He's just being a bully. She's like 19 years old, chubby little thing, bang out of order, obviously, right? But, and there is a but, I'll probably get some stick for it, we are beginning to live in a bit of a snowflake society, where if you try and stop all the bullying in the world, you're in a futile challenge, because it's never going to happen. There will always be racism. There will always be nasty bullies. There will always be people with vendettas. You're never going to escape it. Every time you put out one light bulb, another one will light up next to you. So you're going to be chasing your tail for a long time. What I believe, and again it's my opinion, is that we try and establish kids' self-confidence and resilience to such a point where they're relieved of the ignorance of arseholes. So when the likes of Tilly Ramsey is insulted by a 70-year-old radio presenter calling her a chubby little thing, because he's probably misogynist and jealous and going through a hard time himself, she can laugh at feeling sorry for. Obviously, this isn't easy. This is incredibly hard because you've all got insecurities. But imagine how amazing it would be if she had the resilience to be able to go, look at this guy. What an absolute pathetic guy, and actually use that as a way to sort of empower other women. Again, we've all got our insecurities, and they're all different. You know, I've looked 48 since I've been 14, but you know, wrinkly old hands. And we've all got our things that we don't like, but it's important, I think, we therefore own our faults. And if we can teach, as I said, going back to your initial question, what would I say to young kids to help them with bullying? It's, you're always going to get bullied. Don't try and avoid being bullied. It's going to happen. But when it happens, how are we going to deal with it? And when it happens, how are you going to deal with it? Is take ownership. Take ownership. Yeah, I am bored. Yeah, I do look 48. As soon as I've said it, no one else can say it.
They can't do anything to you, can they? You can't ruin it. Take ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm very blessed and lucky that I'm healthy. You know, I don't suffer with any disabilities and ailments and stuff like that. And obviously, for a lot of people listening to me, you know, when someone's disabled, going, easy for you to own your faults, lad, with no hair. When I'm sitting in my wheelchair, it's like nice on me. So I totally get that there's a difference, right?
I agree with you on the
point. But long story short, if we can try and able to tell kids you are going to get bullied, whether it be at school, in work environments, in team environments, be ready for it. Become resilient. Choose who you listen to, choose whose opinions you care about, and if you don't care about other people's opinions, don't listen to them, and be able to try and laugh it off and build resilience, rather than just get upset with every person that has a popular.
So like I said, for me and you, if we'd not had these challenges growing up, we never had the balls to do what we do now, to push ourselves, for you to take Banish on, for sit down, do the podcast, for you to step in a cage, for you to step on the rugby pitch. Should we take away and there's no bullying or there's no challenge for kids growing up, they get to the real world in the 20s, 30s, get told off by the boss, have a breakdown and quit. 100%. So them challenges are never going to go away.
If we aren't going through adversity, it's like the rules of progressive overload in training. If you're not constantly adapting to a formula of stress, that stress has to constantly increase to be able to adapt more and more and more. If your horizon isn't escaping you, then there's no reason for you to get better. So if you go down the sort of the route of going, right, no bullying, no banter, just everyone don't say anything to anyone about anything. The minute you come out of school and you hit the real world, chaos. Don't worry, everyone's dealing with anxiety. You've got to be almost, it's almost like how you deal with the virus, isn't it? You give a little bit of the virus, so that your body can create the antibodies to actually deal with it. And unless you're having that banter at school, and that little bit of like mick taking and building resilience, then how the hell can you go into normal adult life and actually function
and have a family, have kids? When
100%. I think that's a way harder battle to deal with than going through adversity at school. The difficulty is, where do you draw the line?
Of course.
And that's the argument that's always going to continue. For you know, and it's really hard, and that line changes. It's a bit like comedy, isn't it? You know, I might laugh at one joke, but if something's close to my heart about something, you know, I could laugh about Ricky Gervais or some sort of extremist comedian taking the mick out of sort of religion, because I'm not particularly religious, but then if I was from a particularly religious background and I heard that song, I would take offence to it. So that line is forever changing. But I don't think that therefore qualifies us to be able to say, well, let's just not joke about anything then. Like, it's like, no, we're all going to be talking about different things. We're all going to find offence at different parts of it. But that doesn't mean that when we find offence to the one thing that we get upset about, we suddenly cry about it and get upset. We've got to anticipate and be ready for it's going to come around at some point. Of course. My challenge would still be, the minute the joke or the banter or the bullying is coming from a nasty place, I feel like it's wrong. So if the intent behind what you're saying is to damage or hurt a person intently, it shouldn't be done. If it's because you like the person and you're you're coming from a good place. It's hard to articulate, isn't it?
Yeah, of
It's
course.
hard to get a joke across.
So if there's been a joke or what might become across as bullying going on, if you're doing it to me, I say to you, listen, it's bothering me a bit.
Yeah.
If you carry on after that.
Well, that's a great point,
Yeah.
because that shows like how important it is to talk and communicate.
Yeah.
Because if you're not strong enough and resilient enough to go, whoa, that's my line.
Yeah.
Like,
You've
whoa,
done
that's
it,
me.
yeah.
You've done me there.
Yeah.
Like, straight away, I know most of my friends will be the same.
Yeah.
If I just turn around and go, mate, can you not say that again? You go, yeah, no worries, like that. If you pull someone to the side, and if they don't, and you have said someone to someone, listen, don't say that again, it's not really, that's what got to me, and they carry on, then you know they're an arsehole. And you filter out that side of your life again. Sound right, whatever.
Yeah.
You become that radio presenter that's called Millie, you know. So I think it's really important. It backs up how important it is to communicate, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So going forward now, you step in the ring, we've got Banish, what's the goals, family, everything. What's Jamie Acton's dreams now, mate?
Oh, well, I've just got married a few months ago, so I'm starting that journey, which is great.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, touch wood, you know, potentially more children on the way, if everything goes well, if we're lucky enough. And I'm pursuing sort of MMA. I'm still going. I've not really got a goal as such in mind.
Yeah.
I want to see where I go with it.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to be able to potentially go professional with it.
Yeah.
Anyone can be in a professional MMA fighter these days. It's not like boxing where you need a license.
Right.
You can turn up to a show and say you're getting paid and got yourself a pro fighter. So it doesn't really mean much. But to be able to maybe get the nod from Darren, to be able to go, sort of, you're ready now.
Yeah.
To be able to maybe do that would be really cool.
Yeah.
To maybe fight in a prestigious organisation, something like Bellator, would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a sporting sort of goal. And then sort of a professional sort of goal in terms of Banish. I just want to try and get something out there to really inspire some change and to help people. I always had this idea with Banish, the app, that I'd love to be able to walk into a petrol station one day and for someone to grab me and say, I've used your app and it's been really helpful.
Yeah.
And that would be someone that I didn't know, to be able to go, thank you for what you're doing, like that's really helped me. That's sort of a goal there. But it's really difficult because obviously I've had a lot of stick in some ways for trying to build a mental health app and capitalise on. It's very hard to get something out there that you're trying to help people with, but also monetize. Yeah. Because it sounds disingenuous. Yeah. It's like as if you're going, right, I want to help you, but pay me for it.
Well, yeah, but it's your life experience, it's everything you've worked through.
And people don't realise with the app. Like I have worked with my wife, with my other business partner Tommy, for near enough like 2.5, 3 years on no money, savings from rugby and PTing, personal training, to just try and get enough money to be able to build the app, working all hours, early days. I could have easily, got the money, bought a house, rented it out, done a few PTs, and been really comfortable. Do you know what I mean? But I haven't. I didn't need to. But I felt like I was doing a disservice to myself to not think, you know what, I really struggled. I would have loved something like this. Yeah, of course. How amazing would it be to have some element of legacy that I can show my kids as they grow up and go, at least I tried. At least I tried to do something. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you can't if something's not financially viable, you can't make it grow. You can't push it out there. No, and so it's a really difficult one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, a good point I was told on it. So the guy I really look up to, Tony Robbins, what you've heard him, seminars, and he's $5,000 a seminar. But he says, because I don't want people who don't really want to change. He said, because I can't do anything with them. He said, I only want people who are absolutely desperate to change and they'll pay that money. Because otherwise, if people get it for free and not really bothered about changing, they'll go, Managed fitness doesn't work, because they wasn't really ours. No matter how much we learn, how much we know, how experience we have, if somebody doesn't want to change, we can't change them.
I completely
We're
agree.
just giving them, the advice and telling them our story and what help does. So
I think you can help. I think you can help inspire people. I think you can
of
help.
course.
I think you can turn heads.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, I never thought I was dealing with a problem when I was playing rugby.
Yeah.
If a Tony Robbins character,
Yeah.
I'd have gone. It's maybe not Tony Robbins because he's so good at what he does, but I mean more. If someone said to you, you need counselling for your problems, I'd be like, I haven't got any problems, mate. What are you on about? But if someone was be able to articulate in a charismatic fashion, a way that I was like, I hang on a minute, this really resonates with me. What's going on here? And that sort of triggered something or sparked a light bulb to inspire me to maybe change journey or start looking deeper into things.
Listen to somebody else's story.
But still, I think you're right. Like you've got to have the desire to change, but sometimes just even understanding that you might need to can be a really difficult or profound jump.
Yeah, of course, 100%, mate. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure there's plenty on there that people will be able to learn from. And like I say, if anybody needs any help, Jamie Acton, Banish Fitness, or give myself a message. Take care and thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.